Here is something that almost never happens in Nigerian political drama. A man makes a damaging allegation on national television. The alleged victim threatens a 5 billion naira defamation lawsuit. The man then publishes what he calls evidence to prove his claim. And the evidence, when you actually read it carefully, does not say what he said it says. Not only that, the very person Okonkwo named as his source, the aspirant he claimed sent him an SOS message, the man he presented as the victim of the alleged fraud, went back on national television on the same program the very next day and said, "Peter Obi never told me to pay him a single naira. I never accused Obi of anything." Kenneth Okonkwo came to national television to bury Peter Obi's presidential candidacy with evidence. What he buried instead was his own credibility, and the WhatsApp chat he published to defend himself has created a problem that is bigger than the original accusation. Let us go through this precisely because the details matter enormously. Before we go further, if you're new here, Naija Brief exists for one reason: to give Nigerians the political analysis that mainstream media won't. Whether you're in Abuja, Lagos, Kano, Port Harcourt, or London, this channel is for you. Hit subscribe and stay with me. This gets deeper. On Monday, June 9, 2026, Kenneth Okonkwo, former Nollywood actor, ADC chieftain and former Peter Obi campaign spokesperson, appeared on Channels Television's Sunrise Daily program. What he said was explosive. He alleged that Peter Obi and other NDC leaders in the southeast had collected money from aspirants seeking party tickets ahead of the 2027 election. Specifically, he said House of Representatives aspirants were required to pay 10 million naira each, and senatorial aspirants were charged 20 million naira. He named one aspirant directly, Ogbunike Ohaegu, a NDC candidate for the Nnewi North, Nnewi South and Ekwisigu Federal Constituency in Anambra State. Okonkwo said Ohaegu had sent him an SOS message naming Peter Obi as the head of what he described as the criminality. He went further. He claimed Obi had personally barricaded himself inside the John Wood Hotel in Abuja to handwrite a fabricated list of NDC candidates while the primaries were supposedly ongoing. He told viewers, anyone voting for Peter Obi and the NDC in 2027 is voting for criminality. By the standards of Nigerian political television, this was a thermonuclear allegation. A man who served as the public face of Obi's 2023 presidential campaign, who had inside access to Obi's personal and political world, was now accusing him, by name, on camera, of running a financial extortion scheme through his own party primary. Obi's legal team did not hesitate. Through a letter dated June 9, 2026, signed by lead lawyer Alex Ejesiemi SAN, they demanded 5 billion naira in damages and a public apology within 7 days. The letter described the comments as crossing the permissible bounds of fair comment and constituting a direct attack on Obi's person, integrity, image and reputation. Now, here is where the story turns. The very next morning, Tuesday, June 10, Ogbunike Ohaegu appeared on the same Channels television program, and what he said dismantled every major element of Okonkwo's allegation. He said, on camera, Peter Obi never told him to pay 10 million naira. He said the 10 million naira payment was made into the NDC's official Fidelity Bank account following directions from the party's national secretary. He said he never met Peter Obi throughout the primary election process. He said he never had any monetary discussion with Obi. He said he never told Kenneth Okonkwo that Obi was a criminal, a con man, or the leader of any gang. He said the messages Okonkwo received were part of a broadcast he sent to over 2,000 people, including Peter Obi himself, about rumors of automatic tickets. He described Okonkwo's characterization as quoting private conversations out of context. Within hours, Obi's lawyers issued their formal pre-litigation notice. Okonkwo's response was to publish the WhatsApp chats. This is the part that requires the most careful attention because it is where Okonkwo's self-defense becomes his biggest liability. When you read the WhatsApp chat that Okonkwo published on X, the message from the contact saved as Obunike Ohaegbu says this: "I am saying that I was scammed and the party blames PO." Read that sentence again. The party blames PO. Not PO scammed me, not I paid PO directly, not Peter Obi personally demanded money from me. The message says the aspirant believed he was scammed and that when he challenged the party on it, the party pointed to PO as part of the decision-making. That is a materially different claim from what Okonkwo stated on Channels TV. On television, he said Obi was the head of the criminality, that Ohaegbu named Obi directly, that Obi was personally collecting money. What the chat actually shows, even on Okonkwo's own framing, is a frustrated aspirant expressing disappointment and repeating what the party officials told him. That is hearsay at 2 removes. It is not the direct accusation Okonkwo presented on national television. Even observers who are not NDC supporters noticed the gap immediately. A widely shared response on X read, "What is in those text messages is not what you have been saying. The aspirant said he was scammed and the party blames PO, while you have been saying that the aspirant said PO scammed him. You are a very dishonest individual." The bank receipt Okonkwo also published compounded the problem further. The receipt showed a 10 million naira payment made to the NDC's official party account, not to Peter Obi, not to a personal account linked to Obi, not to any individual. It showed money paid to the party. This is consistent with Ohaegbu's own account on television, that he paid into the party account based on the National Secretary's instructions. The gap between what Okonkwo claimed and what his own evidence demonstrated is not minor. In a defamation case, that gap is the case. Peter Obi's legal team is now working with published evidence from Okonkwo's own hand that contradicts Okonkwo's most explosive claims. That is an extraordinarily uncomfortable legal position to be in. And then, Okonkwo made a third move that worsened everything. He posted on X, "Let me sound this note of warning. The lawyers must take responsibility for any information I may have to divulge, which I acquired as a spokesperson, but which by my conscience I have not shared with anyone." He was explicitly threatening to weaponize confidential information he acquired while serving as Peter Obi's campaign spokesperson. A man who accepted a position of trust, received privileged campaign communications, and is now using the existence of that information as a bargaining chip against a 5 billion naira lawsuit. That threat is not just a legal problem, it's a character problem, and Nigerians watching this story are making that judgment in real time. Now, if what I just told you surprises you, drop a comment below. I want to know your reaction before we get to the part that changes everything. Now let us step back from the legal drama and ask the more consequential political question. Who deployed this story and why now? Kenneth Okonkwo is not politically neutral. He is an ADC chieftain, a party currently fielding Atiku Abubakar as their presidential candidate. NDC and ADC are direct competitors in the anti-Tinubu space. The more credible the NDC ticket looks, the weaker the ADC's claim to being the primary opposition vehicle. A story that frames Peter Obi as corrupt, particularly in the southeast where Obi's support is deepest and where NDC needs to run up the biggest margins, is a story that serves ADC's electoral interests directly. This does not mean Okonkwo was paid to lie. That allegation would require evidence we do not have. What it does mean is that the timing, the venue, the specific constituency targeted, Southeast aspirants, Southeast caucus leaders, Anambra State specifically, and the political identity of the man making the claims are not coincidental variables. They are the structure of a targeted political narrative. For the NDC, the immediate political damage is manageable but real. Allegations of primary financial irregularities, even disputed ones, even ones that fall apart under scrutiny, leave a residue in the information environment. Not every voter will watch the Ohaegbu rebuttal. Not every voter will read the WhatsApp chat carefully. some percentage of the electorate will retain the impression NDC primaries were messy, Obi was involved, something happened with money. That residue is worth something to the ADC, regardless of the legal outcome. The deeper problem this episode exposes for NDC is a structural one. The party is less than 4 months old. Its internal processes, candidate selection, financial management of form fees, the national secretary and regional caucus leaders' relationship with the presidential candidate are not yet institutionalized. Whether or not Obi personally authorized or directed any improper payment is separate from the fact that aspirants in the Southeast felt, rightly or wrongly, that the primary process did not treat them fairly. Ohayagbu himself said on television that aspirants from Anambra State were not invited to any meeting for the purpose of negotiating or agreeing a consensus arrangement, while other states were. That grievance is real, even if it does not amount to bribery by Obi. A 4-month-old party contesting a presidential election is inevitably going to have operational imperfections. The question is whether those imperfections are being addressed internally or whether they are going to be surfaced by opponents in the information space to do maximum electoral damage. The legal dimension of this case has implications beyond Obi versus Okonkwo. In Nigeria, defamation suits involving political figures have a complicated history. They are frequently used not to pursue genuine legal remedy, but as political instruments, to chill speech, signal strength, or force adversaries to spend time and money on litigation rather than campaigning. The 5 billion naira figure is not accidental. It is designed to be headline-generating, to signal that Obi is willing to fight, and to make other critics calculate the cost of similar allegations. This does not mean the suit has no merit. On the evidence available, Okonkwo made specific factual claims on national television that his own named source on the same national television subsequently denied. His published evidence does not support the specific claim he made. Those are the ingredients of a defamation action in a functioning legal environment. But the democratic concern runs in both directions. A democratic culture where any allegation of financial irregularity in party primaries is immediately met with a billion-naira lawsuit threat is a culture that discourages the kind of internal accountability that parties need to function honestly. The harder conversation, whether NDC's primary process in the Southeast was transparent, whether aspirants received fair treatment, whether the National Secretary's instructions about payments were properly communicated and documented, that conversation gets buried under the legal drama. For ordinary Nigerians watching this play out, the lesson is uncomfortable but important. What happened here is a warning about what the 2027 information environment will look like. Allegations will be made without evidence. Evidence will be released that does not support the allegations. Sources will contradict the people who cited them. Defamation threats will fly. And somewhere underneath all of that noise, there are real questions about how Nigerian political parties select their candidates, who pays for the process, and who ultimately controls the ballot. Those questions deserve answers, not just in NNCP, but in APC, ADC, APM, and every other party that will contest 2027. The problem is not unique to Peter Obi. It is structural to Nigerian party politics. 3 things to watch as this story develops. First, whether Peter Obi's legal team actually files the suit. A pre-litigation letter is not a filed case. The calculation on Obi's side is delicate. Filing keeps the pressure on Okonkwo, but also keeps the story alive in the news cycle. Not filing allows the story to fade, but signals that the threat was tactical rather than legal. Watch for a court filing within the 7-day window specified in the demand letter. Second, whether Okonkwo delivers on his threat to divulge confidential campaign information. This is the most dangerous element of the entire episode, not for Obi's reputation, but for the principle of spokesperson confidentiality in Nigerian politics. If it becomes normalized that a former campaign spokesperson can threaten to weaponize private campaign information every time they are sued, no future presidential candidate will be able to maintain a frank internal communication culture with their own team. That would damage Nigerian political institutions well beyond this specific dispute. Third, how NNCP responds to the legitimate grievances underneath the Okonkwo allegations. Even stripped of the exaggeration and the fabricated attribution, Ohayegbu's own words reveal a Southeast aspirant who felt excluded from the consensus-building process that other zones experienced. NNCP's leadership must address that directly, not with legal threats, but with internal reform that aspirants across all states can see and trust. Kenneth Okonkwo made a decision to go to national television with a claim he could not fully substantiate. His source contradicted him publicly, his evidence contradicted his claim, and his threat to weaponize campaign secrets further damaged the very argument he was trying to make, that he is a man of principle who was exposing wrongdoing. The question for viewers is not whether Kenneth Okonkwo is a bad person. The question is what this entire episode tells you about the quality of evidence being deployed in Nigeria's 2027 information war. Because between now and January 2027, there will be many more Kenneth Okonkwos from every political direction making claims on television that will need to be read as carefully as this one. The habit of reading carefully is not optional. In 2027, it is survival. If this analysis gave you clarity, share it with one person who needs to understand what is really happening in Nigeria. Like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.